What's going on, everybody? Buttes live pregame for Game 5 series tied 2-2 between your Minnesota Wild and your Vegas Golden Knights. I'm Jessi Pierce, writer for NHL.com. She's Kirsten Krull, in arena host. How we all doing? Don't forget, jump in the chat. Let us know if you have any questions. Let us know you're here. Cheer, all the good things. Kirsten, I'm telling you, an 8:30 or an 8:47, I believe, official puck drop feels like an afternoon matinee after what we dealt with last week.
It absolutely does. And the sun is still shining. I would, if I wasn't lazy and didn't have a slice of pizza in my left hand, I would turn my computer camera so you could see the sun setting and like the clear blue skies, not a cloud in sight. So the night is still young.
The night is, we're loving it. How are we feeling heading in? We did drop a new episode. Don't forget to check that out, where we probably covered some of the points. But one thing that we touched on yesterday during the record, Kirsten, that came to fruition, Zeev Buium not in the lineup for Game 5, having played the first 4 games of the series, playing well, but it was kind of writing on the wall situation. He wasn't put into the overtime, limited ice time as the series went on. I'm okay with it. Personally, I don't have any problems with sitting Zeev or putting John Merrill in for this instance.
I'm okay with it as well. I think the reasoning for it, correct me if I'm wrong, was to give him a little bit of a break. I think he could use it. I can only imagine how overwhelming. And granted, he has been playing just fine. I mean, there's been little areas you need to tighten up and, go back, watch some film on, clean up. But just giving him a little bit of a breather, of a break, I can only imagine how overwhelming of a situation it is. You're not coming in, making your NHL debut at the end of the regular season where you're either in or out of the playoffs. It doesn't matter how you play. You're coming in game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and then it's do or die for your team moving forward. You must win games, play everything that you have. So yes, I think a break is good. Maybe not so much if for the body, if not the mind, just to reset.
Yeah, I mean, I think Zeev was playing with a good amount of confidence as the series went on, but it still showed he's 19. There was a magnifying glass on him for every good thing he did, every bad thing he did. And I don't see a problem. They had already moved Jared Spurgeon back onto the power play. You got Brock Faber on the other power play. So it's not even like that was going awry. I noticed a lot of the comments coming in, some conversation about the stripes, about the officiating tonight in hopes that it is better. Yeah, game 4, tough non-calls. It wasn't even the calls necessarily. It was the non-calls that absolutely killed the Minnesota Wild, it seems.
I'm trying to bite my tongue because I'm not somebody who wants to just constantly ride the officiating, blame everything on officiating. Yes, because there were moments, there were opportunities Wild got a call, such as the power play in overtime, where they could have scored and taken the game right there. But yes, you cannot deny the fact that there were some very questionable calls made, or lack of calls for that matter, that could have potentially changed the momentum. Really hoping that is not the case this evening.
No, you hate when officiating dictates any sense of the game, especially when it comes to the playoffs. And as you said, and as we discussed in this week's episode, there were opportunities for Minnesota to get back in it, if you will. Not that they were necessarily ever out. But I don't think that it was fair. I just want it to be fair. I would just like to know what they were calling. I go back to the icing situation, right? We talked about it.
God.
That was so frustrating. Like, you completely removed any benefit of getting the icing call by allowing those guys to catch their breath and not figuring out who was on the ice. Again, there was the Mark Stone penalty where it looked like he was prepared to go into the box. All that being said, Minnesota had their opportunities after some of those missed calls, after some of that. But again, hopefully that's not a conversation at all following tonight's Game 5.
Because, I mean, even going back a little further in the series, when you look at especially game 1, game 2, the officials, they did hold their whistles back more for both sides. There was a lack of calls on both ends, but also they were just letting the guys play, which I think I appreciated that a lot more because it was so even.
Yeah.
And just no calls being made, period. So if that's what you're leaning towards, do that, but have it be fair on both ends.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And there have been situations and instances, not even just in this series, but in other ones too. You go back to the Florida Tampa Bay last night, where Ekblad, who ends up with the 2-game sussy for his hit on Brandon Hagel, not called for it though at all. I mean, there's a lot of inconsistencies. It goes back to I would just like to make the officials be held accountable. Like,
Yes,
let
can we
us
do
talk.
that by having a little FaceTime call with the refs after a call's made like the NBA does? I love that.
Can we do it in a less awkward way, though? Like, it makes
No.
me so uncomfortable to watch the awkwardness of those officials when they make the call.
No, I love it. I would like to keep the exact format, like the awkward camera angle, the leaning in. Like, please just copy paste what the NBA does. Also, hi, Kurt. Missed you last game.
Hello, everybody. Again, don't forget, drop your questions, comments. We'll be sure to show those throughout this live stream before puck drop coming up for Game 5 in Vegas for your Minnesota Wild. Kirsten, I want to talk about the physicality, all right? And you know what? I'm even going to give dandelions. I'll say they're dandelions. I would like to talk about Yakov Trenin, and I would like to talk about Marcus Foligno, and I would like to talk about Justin Brazeau, who have combined for a ton of hits throughout this series. Marcus Foligno leading the NHL in the playoffs with 35 hits. Trenin has 22. Justin Brazeau with 17 of his own. It's not just that physical element. First of all, fantastic to see some of these guys use the size that we've been touting all season long. That I'm looking at you, Yakov, and I'm looking at you, Justin. I'm very happy to see that this is a positive change. But I love the way that the physicality isn't getting in the way of playing the game the right way. It's separating the puck. It's creating that space. It's creating that time. It's absolutely freaking brilliant.
And it's been a big difference maker in this series as well.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That pizza. Just terrible.
I'm sorry I didn't eat dinner.
Live show. We apologize.
So I'm eating well.
Jeez Louise.
Hey, you fit it in when you can when you're living life on the go, right?
This is true. Shout out again to everybody. But yeah, no, I think it's been so good. I'm especially happy to see 13 and 15 pay their dues, do what they need to. The forechecking from Yakov Trenin has been sensational. And I will say that. I will always give credit where credit is due. And I will give criticism where it is due as well. I'd just like to remind people of that for those that are listening.
And I mean, you brought this up, I believe, last week when you looked up the stats. You talk about the physicality and that fourth line. I think it was Trennian more so than Brazeau bringing the hits. I think what you said 8-1 game as opposed to Foligno's 11.
Yeah, I mean Trenin and I will continue to say Trenin while you say Trennian. He's got 22 total through 4 games, but that was one game he only had 1 hit registered anyway. But I know he's had 8 and 7 and kind of a variety, which is good, which is great.
You need to see that, and you said this. That's why they picked him up earlier this season because he's a playoff player.
They did. So let's get into that comment a little bit. John Hines being asked at practice yesterday how great it is to see Yakov Trenin kind of contribute in this manner and add this and that. And he said, well, yeah, that's why we got him, because he's this playoff type player. I don't like that we had to wait until the playoffs to finally see this, though. That's kind of where my criticism falls, is where has this been throughout the course of the entire season? There were certainly games, right? I think there were a couple games on the road where Yakov contributed offensively. And again, on that hard hitting forecheck, I would have loved to have seen that throughout more of the course of the season. Yes, it's obviously fantastic to get in the playoffs, but you could have played that way a little bit more frequently, I think, because I truly didn't know. I think that's why I'm so, I don't want to say surprised, but I'm so like, yay, go 13, because I haven't seen this at all.
Yeah, and I think that's very fair. But also, I don't think they were as forthcoming about the reasons why they picked him up. It was just, here he is. We've acquired him for this much money, this amount of years. This is what the contract is. So I don't think we got that full. I mean, we did speculate the size, but as far as like what he brought, even when he was in Nashville, we were like, we don't know what to expect with him here. So now I feel like we have, for the first time, like kind of a picture of what the vision was acquiring him on the roster.
Yeah, we've got a question coming in from Steamroller. Jojo back today. Marcus Johansson is back. He missed with a lower body injury game 4. He practiced yesterday. Everything seemed fine. So no issues there. He comes in. Vinny Hinostroza comes on out. I would have loved to see Liam Ogren hop in that situation. Liam Ogren is on the Vegas Golden Knights trip. He has been upgraded from that Black Aces roster onto the Minnesota Wild roster. Again, you'll probably only see him if an injury occurs or if things really need to change, whether that be in this series or beyond. John Hines saying yesterday they're going to treat it kind of like Zeev, where they want to get him enough practices. Yesterday would have been his first practice with the team. Now I feel like it'd be easier to slot in Liam because he's been here before, because he's done this. But for now, Marcus Johansson in and Vinny Hinostroza out. Kind of along those same lines, Kurt is saying, I didn't like Rossi on the fourth line, but now I see what Coach Hines was talking about prior to the series. People are still very touchy about this subject, about this situation of having Marco Rossi on the fourth line. It's clearly worked. I think it was a big head scratcher. I think it seemed kind of insulting, but I do always kind of have to remind myself, particularly when it comes to John Hines. Dean Evson, I think when he coached, put players on certain lines, and that was very, very indicative of a demotion or of, playing less than. John Hines, I think, does that, but I don't think that's always in every situation. I think the way that he moves lines throughout the course of the game, the way that he moves lines to match the opposition, it's not always necessarily a bad thing. Now, yes, Marco Rossi coming out of that top six is a little bit of a message sender, but I do think he genuinely saw an opportunity to put him on that fourth line to start generating some offense down there with the way that Yakov Trennin's forechecking and getting the puck loose, and with the way Justin Brazeau's doing that similar thing. I think that's why John Hines kind of did that at first. Again, the removal from the top six for Marco, I think for sure was like, you're not playing good enough to be up here. We have to try something new. But I think putting him on that fourth line was indeed to kind of hopefully shake something up there. And it's worked. Marco Rossi finding the score sheet a couple of games here.
Yeah, I would agree that it's worked. I also do see the other side, because I was also on the other side, to where it does feel insulting compared to, granted, I am cognizant, as much as I do love Marco Rossi and what he brings to this team, that he was having a little bit more struggles than you would like to see. So, which would, explain and rationalize bumping him down to that fourth line. But also, I think the biggest thing was, how is he supposed to succeed down there when at the time when he was moved, you weren't necessarily seeing what you've been seeing from Trennin and Brazeau.
Yeah.
As you are now.
Right. I'd agree. And I think anything that can get Marco going is only going to obviously benefit the team, because as I've said before the series started, Marco Rossi is going to be kind of that must show up player. He's going to be that impact guy. Marcus Foligno certainly has been that as well. We can circle back on that again. Thank you if you guys are just joining us. Drop your comments, questions, cheering, all of the good stuff in the section below. I'm Jessi Pierce, writer for NHL.com. She's Kirsten Krull, in arena host. KJ wants to talk about thoughts on the scratch having a potential effect on Buium's confidence. Kirsten, what are your thoughts?
I don't think it's going to affect his confidence at all, personally. I think, like we had kind of briefly touched on, I think it gives him a mental break, gives him time to maybe settle down a little bit, and give him a chance too to not only rest the mentals and the physical aspect of everything, but take a little bit more of a back seat and get to watch from above what the guys are doing, get to see from afar, like, oh, like this is where I should be in this situation, or, oh, we can tighten up this. I think it gives him a little bit, not saying that he needs a learning opportunity, but it gives him that little bit of a break that John Hines did mention. I don't think it bumps his confidence at all. We know he's going to be there. We know he's going to be part of the decor for the Wild moving forward.
Yeah, and I followed up on Hines, just doing my due diligence, saying this isn't certainly sounding an alarm about how Zeev plays again. This is a 19-year-old kid stepping into his NHL debut during the playoffs. And I think his confidence was probably already a little shook, right? I mean, from game one, it's kind of a very eye-opening experience, because Vegas is a tough, heavy team. That's what's made them so successful throughout the season, throughout this playoffs. So I'm sure Zeev was already kind of like checking himself, like, all right. And John Hines was quick to say, having him out for game 5 doesn't mean that he's not going to play the rest of the series or again in another situation. So this isn't saying, okay, we're all in on John Merrill because we're totally out on Zeev. I think it's just an opportunity to see what can happen. And John Merrill is a player that this year has done very well at just coming in kind of cold and filling in those roles, and ends up having a pretty decent game. Again, I stand by what I've said all season. Yes, I was harsh on number 4 last year, but this year he's been very serviceable, and I think he's been fine, if not good, in some situations. So I don't have a problem. I think Zeev it was. The glaring mistakes were getting hard to ignore, and they were getting hard to cover up. It made Zach Bogosian kind of look even sloppier as well. And I think if you weren't willing to move around those deep pairings and put Jared Spurgeon with him, or Bro, you know, well, he wouldn't want to put Bros because they're both lefties. But I think if you weren't willing to mix up those pairings, then this was the second best option. So I think his confidence will be fine. It's got to get there, but we'll see. Chris wants to know, what do you think John Merrill gives the Wild as opposed to tossing Zeev back out there for game 5?
A veteran presence and a little bit of composure.
Yeah, I would say there's that composure, consistency, that comfort. Not necessarily that Zeev was uncomfortable, but I think it just gives them that confidence. Like, John knows what he's doing, right? He's an NHL vet. Him and Bogosian have played in this situation. I still don't anticipate seeing much of that third D pairing. If you go back to game 4, you saw those 4 defensemen rotating very, very heavily. And I think that will still be the case because as much as Zeev struggled, I thought Bogo struggled too. And I don't think that was necessarily to cover up for Zeev. I haven't been overly thrilled with Zach Bogosian's play throughout the playoffs this year.
I feel from what I have seen, and I could be wrong, because again, this is from what I've seen, what I've noticed, I feel Bogosian has arguably made, if not the same amount, but if not more mistakes than I've seen from Zeev. At least noticeable mistakes.
Yeah, some pretty tough situations out of Bogosian, but again, John Merrill in for Z Bouillon in case you missed it. The rookie defenseman will be taking a seat for game 5. We're previewing the Minnesota Wild versus Vegas Golden Knights. First round matchup, game 5, series tied 2-2. They are back in Vegas. Speaking of, somebody had asked how excited we are to work game 6. I'm excited they're coming back to St. Paul on Thursday. Gets another game under our hats, huh?
Yeah, I'm also excited they're coming back for game 6. Nothing like the playoffs, so getting to work for sure 3 of them. Exciting.
Yeah. Shout out to all the fans that were in attendance over those 2 games that we had just recently. Great crowds, great electricity. I think that third period on Saturday, everybody was standing for like the entirety of the overtime and probably the last 6 minutes of the third period. Just incredible work by our Minnesota Wild fan base.
Yeah, it was loud in there.
We loved it. Jennifer wants to know, what do you think about the play of Gus Nyquist?
I was very excited when we acquired him. He has not lived up to what I had hoped we would see from him.
This man's got 1 5-on-5 goal the entire season. That goes back to his Nashville days, which happened in like November. It's not great. I don't think it'll ever happen. I wouldn't mind seeing him get benched in favor of Liam Ogren. Again, I don't see that happening. Gus has been suitable on the penalty kill. In fact, he's probably helped that penalty kill, but that's kind of the biggest thing he's contributed. His age is just really showing. I think I, like you, Kirsten, was so excited to have him come back to the team because I loved what I saw 2 years ago. I was like, oh, he was a great playmaker. He was able to move around the ice. That's all just kind of vanished. I don't know. He is vanished. He is kind of like a ghost out there. I don't love it. I mean, it's unfortunate. I think he's just kind of on the tail end of the career now at this point.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm bummed about it, but it is what it is.
I know, right? Moving on. Taylor wants to know, will Philip Gustafsson play the entire series? Should we say it together?
Yes.
Yes. We almost got it. Let's try again. Yes. That was...
This is why you're like taking so long to do it. Whereas like you say, all right. And then I'm like, okay, yes.
Yes.
I'm not doing this anymore. You're like dragging it out. I don't know what you're doing.
He is. There's nothing more unless he gets, and knock on wood and all of the good luck thing, unless he gets hurt, you will not see Marc-Andre Fleury or even Jesper Wallstedt for that matter.
Which is also why you also saw Fleury get that farewell in overtime, spur of the moment when the Wild had secured their playoff spot in that final game of the regular season.
Yeah. And I see Marc-Andre, and he's still his happy-go-lucky self. You know, of course, he'd be rather playing, but he's one of those guys that when he says, I truly care about the team and what's best for the team, he genuinely means it. And I think the majority of hockey players do, but you can just see how palpable. Like, he doesn't really care. He's still out there doing the thing. He's still a part of the team. He's still active on the ice during practice, comes off sweating every day, but always has a smile and whatnot. So he's fine with it. Gus has been playing great. So there's no reason for concern there. Kurt wants to give a shout out to Shannon a couple episodes. We do love the hockey guy. He is fantastic. If you haven't watched that episode, go and check it out. It was probably about 2 weeks back with the hockey guy, Shannon Skanes. And then we obviously have a new episode dropped this week. We've got, sorry, Kurt, I'm taking a break. Jerome wants to know, for what it's worth, the best line the last month of the season was Boldy, Moose, and Mighty Mouse centering them. I had like a little affection for Foligno, Rossi, and Boldy, which rearranged, we called it the beef line. I loved the attempt at what was there, right? I understand why they went back, or they went to Kaprizov, Ek, and Boldy, but it was kind of fun to watch.
It was fun to watch. It wasn't there for a long time, but was there for a good time.
It was there for, if only for the nickname, like if only because we're calling it beef. Like, love that for him. Drake wants to know, who do you think is on the out after the season is over? Which hopefully is down the road, but what do you think?
It's hard to say with all the contracts that we have.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
John Merrill, gone.
Yeah, I mean, yes, John Merrill's going to be gone. Chisholm, question mark.
Question mark on Declan Chisholm, which had you asked me this a few months ago, I would have been like, oh, he's an RFA. They could probably figure something out, but I think he's gone. Bogo has one more year, or is he done after this year?
I want to say he has one more year, but
I think he has one more year. Gus, I here on a he's Gus Nyquist, excuse me. Should be done after this year as well. Let's hold on, guys. We're gonna take a quick look-see here for 25-26. Marcus Johansson, there's a name. What do you think? Out?
It's a contract year. We're probably gonna re-sign him.
No, he's out. He's out. He's gone. I'm done with it. Marco Rossi will be obviously the big interesting one. He is an RFA after this season, so that'll be curious. Declan Chisholm, but I think for sure you're losing John Merrill. You're obviously losing Marc-Andre Fleury, Gus Nyquist, probably Marcus Johansson, probably too. Maybe.
I don't know.
Be interesting.
Contract year. That's all I'm saying.
He's been playing well in the playoffs. Are you surprised that
Marcus in a contract year?
Again, if you missed it, Marcus Johansson back in the lineup tonight after missing game 4 with a lower body injury. Sean thinks that they need to play Rossi more than 7 minutes. Now, that is kind of the problem.
Sean.
That is the problem, having him on the 4th line. At what point do you think he gets another look up on that second line, though? Like, Freddie Gaudreau has been fine. That second line hasn't been doing a heck of a whole lot in general for me, so I wouldn't be mad at changing things up, but I don't know if John Hines is there with him yet.
I don't think he will in these playoffs, at least not in this series, if the Wild advance.
Yeah. Do you think that's more like, how telling do you think that is for the future relationship with Rossi then too?
My opinion, from an outsider's perspective, I don't see a logical reason, especially when we're about to get out of the cap situation that we're in, that you would go ahead and trade Rossi. There's a lot of promise there. Yes, you talk about how you could get a big return for him, but especially when we're getting out of the cap situation, I don't see why we would just trade him away. So I would hope it's not indicative. I don't really understand it personally.
It's been ongoing for a couple of years. I think, as I've mentioned, you felt that the organization wasn't really all in on Marco. And if Marco's team is asking for a lot, which again, his right, his prerogative, I'd be curious to know what that number is coming in at, right? If you've got Boldy at 7, you got Faber at 8, you're probably getting 15.5 with Krull. Like, where does Rossi feel like he falls in those numbers? I mean, does he think he's 9? Like, then that might be a little high for me. That's a little rich for my blood.
I mean, I agree. I don't think he's worth Matt Boldy money, but I think he's somewhere close. Like,
if you're giving Yakov Trenin 4, I'd give him 5.5.
I would give him more than Trenyan, respectfully.
Right?
They are not in the same conversation.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm like, I suppose if you look at that lower end of things, right, compared to the higher end, it'll be curious. I agree, Adam. I have liked Jared Spurgeon this series. And I say I'm surprised only because, again, the injuries, right? Jared Spurgeon has dealt with injuries again this season. And again, he's kind of on the elder side of the game, but I think he's had a really nice playoffs. I think he's really bounced back from his mid-season, end-season injury. And it's just a nice reminder that what Jared Spurgeon can bring. Again, how consistent he is, how stable he is, and just what I really love about having him as a part of this team and as a captain.
Yeah, he's been great.
Do you like him with Brodeen the most?
I mean, he's one of those players that, I don't know, he would be good wherever you put him. So I guess, I don't know, him and Brodeen, I think they've been more of, I don't want to say shut down pair, but they've been good.
Yeah, they'll be all right, I think. We'll see. Let's talk about Filip Gustavsson one more time to kind of round things out here before we get going on to the game, so we don't miss any of the action, right? We don't want anybody to miss out on this Game 5 series tied 2-2. Again, I'm Jessi Pierce. She's Kirsten Krull. Thank you for joining us on our Buttes Live. We are so excited to try this out. We might have to do this more. I kind of dig this. It's kind of fun.
It's a pretty cool situation.
To do it from, I don't even know, I'm wearing pants, like I can just hang out. I'm just kidding. I'm wearing shorts, but just chill. Filip Gustavsson, hands down the difference maker in the series. We talked about it this week. I titled our episode this week that because I think without question, he is the biggest advantage that Minnesota has in this series.
He is. And I mean, the goaltending isn't a question when you do the head-to-head matchup, Adin Hill, Filip Gustavsson. Filip Gustavsson has, without a doubt, been the better goaltender. I think more than anything, Vegas's defense, as we have mentioned time and time again, has been their difference. Filip Gustavsson has been ours.
Yeah. I mean, he's been the best PKer. Again, Minnesota's penalty kill pretty successful throughout this series, which is saying a lot considering Vegas come in. They were going at like a 30% clip at one point during the season. Now, of course, this last game kind of skews those numbers a little bit, but I love how dialed in Gus is. Even when he lets in kind of some of those soft goals, which we've seen in Game 3 and in Game 4, he gets back on it, which again, Filip Gustavsson last year, Kirsten, wasn't doing that. That was the biggest problem. He would not rebound from those soft goals. And this year, he's doing an incredible job of going back 0-0.
Yeah, I agree. Night and day from last season to this season. So I've been really impressed with him.
Now, this is probably a stupid question or a stupid comment, but I'm going to say it anyway because I do believe their hold stock for the Minnesota Wild. How imperative do you think it is for them to score first? You look at Game 2 and you look at Game 3 where they scored 1 and then they rattled off 3 more and just really got that full grab of the momentum and threw Vegas back onto their heels, which they never recovered. I think they need to do that again. Now, it's easier said than done. And of course, it's like, well, no shit, they need to be scoring first. But I do think that's everything for Minnesota to have Krull pot that first goal, to have Foligno pot. Like, it needs to happen, and it needs to happen quickly to really surprise them.
I mean, it changes the entire momentum of the game. And I mean, yeah, you always want to be the team that can score first, but especially for Minnesota, you don't want to play from behind, especially with the Vegas team that they have. It's a good, solid team. So if you can get that early advantage, you need to do it.
Predictions for tonight, Kirsten. What you got?
Predictions for tonight? It's tough to say. I mean, I think in this series, it's tough to win 2 straight. We saw Minnesota do it. My gut is telling me Minnesota comes away with the win here tonight.
Me too.
I'm cautiously optimistic.
I hate it. Ooh, Terry says Nyquist OT winner. We're putting some stock in Gus Nyquist to do something, which is, kind of incredible to think about. But I wouldn't.
It's almost puck drop, so we'll be finding out here as we go along.
We will. Again, thanks for joining us for our first live, you guys. This was a ton of fun. Puck drop coming up in probably still about 10 minutes. Feel free to chitter chatter on here. Follow us on our social media pages. Don't forget to check out this week's episode as well. And we'll be back in St. Paul for Thursday's game. Until then, go wild. You guys are the best. We'll see you later.